So I've just completed a cruise with a cruise line that is considered to be the cheapest cruise line in the United States. And in this video, I'm going to give you an honest review outlining the good, the bad, and the ugly. By the way, do keep in mind that this review does come down to personal perspective, experiences, and opinion. You yourself could sail with this specific cruise line on this ship and have a completely different experience. So the cruise line I'd be sailing with is Margaritaville at Sea, which initially launched in the year 2022. The specific ship I'd be sailing on is the Margaritaville at Sea Islander. This ship was launched in the year 2000, and at that time, it was known as the Costa Atlantica, belonging to Carnival Cruise Line's Italian cruise line, Costa Cruises. It was then sold to Carnival Cruise Line in 2019, then sold to Margaritaville in 2023. It would then launch as Margaritaville at Sea Islander in the year 2024. It carries 2,100 passengers at full capacity, 900 crew, and is currently doing 4, 5, and 7 night sailings out of Tampa, Florida, going over to the Caribbean. It cost $500 million to build, has 12 decks, 3 pools, 6 dining options, 13 bars, 12 restaurants. Now for my cruise, I'd be taking a 7-day sailing out of Tampa, Florida with 4 stops, visits, or destinations around Florida, Mexico, and Belize. This would also be a Halloween sailing known as the Haunted Seas, but more on that later. Now as far as the price of my cruise, I do have to disclose to all of you that I did not pay for this cruise. Margaritaville invited me to come on board for a Halloween sailing. It included the price of the entire cruise, port fees and taxes, drinks, and even excursions. However, I am still allowed to say whatever I want on this specific video because really all they asked for was an Instagram reel. So this video is fair game. I did, however, look at the price of this cruise either way, and for these 4, 5, and 7 night sailings, the price typically does float roughly around $500 before you put on the add-ons and taxes. So let's say, to call it even, around $600 to $700 to cruise with Margaritaville for an average week-long sailing. And then everything else is pretty much standard procedure. You get your boarding tags emailed to you, and then any other add-on, you could do all of it either before or even during the cruise. Now for the first day of my cruise, I did arrive early at the port of Tampa. Margaritaville did give me express check-in, meaning I got on basically before all of the general boarding passengers, roughly around 10 a.m. And when I got into the terminal, everything in there was pretty much smooth sailing, whether you were express or not. The line seemed to move fairly quickly, and the terminal overall was well organized. Once I got my key card and everything checked in, you can do all the add-ons as far as the drink package or any of the dining options over in the terminal before you board the ship. When I finally got on board the Islander, aside from the iconic Margaritaville Jimmy Buffett flip-flop, I did notice the atrium had a very nice Halloween vibe going on. They had everything decorated to fit the specific time of the year, which I thought was honestly pretty cool. After that, the first thing I did was check into my muster or safety drill. Now given, gone are the days where a lot of cruise lines would have everybody come down in their life jackets and check in. However, from my understanding, Margaritaville still does that every other cruise. For my specific sailing, I didn't have to. I just went over, checked my key card, went over all of the rules and where I go in the event of an emergency, and after that, I was free to go. I would then go up to deck 8 to check out my cabin. I will be staying in cabin 8122, which was a breezy balcony stateroom. It is 185 square foot, but I do have to admit, it felt a lot larger than what it was. The room was very well designed, and from the bathroom to the balcony, everything was nice and clean. I am not a huge fan personally of shower curtains for hygienic reasons, but overall I had really no problem with the room whatsoever. I also got a nice little welcoming that was writing on the mirror, and they had champagne in my room. Thank you, Margaritaville at Sea, for that. And the balcony itself was extremely spacious, and I will say that the room overall was pretty modernized. I think that Margaritaville did a very good job at fixing this ship up, even though it was technically an older ship. The refurbishments went very, very well. Now, after I left my stateroom, I decided to do a little exploring. I did run into a couple upside down pineapples on cabin doors along the way. If you know, you know. But overall, I liked the ship immediately. Now, do keep in mind, it is not my first time on board the Margaritaville at Sea Islander. I was on the inaugural or maiden voyage just over a year ago, and I did go back in order to see if things had changed or even diminished a little bit. But honestly, I did not see it. I do believe that the ship overall is well designed, and just even looking at it from an aesthetic perspective with the things that you can do around the ship and the pools and the bar service, which went very, very well, by the way, they do have a good running ship in operation. There is an adults only area, by the way, which I do believe is well designed and very well located. So if you do want to hang out over in that area without any kids bothering you, that would be the place to go. As far as the sail away party, I do believe it was really carnival-like. It wasn't anything crazy, but I did have a good time, and it was nice to leave out of Tampa because we were able to go under the Skyway Bridge, which was a pretty cool experience. Now, as far as the overall vibe, it was pretty chill. The demographic did seem to kind of sail into somewhat of an older crowd. Do keep in mind that with Margaritaville at Sea, something really cool they do is allow first responders to sail free along with military veterans and pretty much everybody in that circle. All they have to do is pay the port fees and taxes, so you could understand why it is attractive to people that are in that specific category. But it does kind of depend on the time of year. This was the ending of summer, and it was that weird space between summer and fall or holiday season. So I do believe the demographics do change a little bit, but overall you are going to see an older crowd of veterans and military and first responders. Now, I do have to, however, divulge a gripe that I had while on board, something I haven't experienced really the other times that I've sailed with Margaritaville at Sea. And I've sailed with them a total of 6 times, 4 times on the Margaritaville at Sea Paradise over in West Palm Beach, and 2 times on the Islander. They were overplaying Margaritaville Jimmy Buffett music. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand it's a Jimmy Buffett product, but every day, all day, every time you turn around, you are hearing Margaritaville, burger or cheeseburger in paradise, and 5 o'clock somewhere. When I came on board last time, they were kind of mixing it up, and this is something that I heard from a lot of the passengers on board. They don't mind the music, but they do believe that at some point you should change things up because it does get overplayed, and you were hearing this everywhere, whether you were on any of the pool decks or even in the atrium. As far as the bars, they were nice and conveniently located, and overall the service was not bad. It was relatively quick. Whether you were at the 5 o'clock somewhere bar, the flip-flop bar, the tiki bar, land shark bar, lookout bar, bubbles bar, which honestly was one of my favorites. It was pretty cool. Far Side of the World, Havana Daydreaming Sports Bar, the Hemisphere Dancer Craft Spirits, and even the Love and Luck Casino Bar. Or even if you were simply just getting a coffee at the Margaritaville coffee shop. Now, let's sail into the food. I have to be honest and upfront with all of you guys. When I put the food on the Margaritaville at Sea Islander with any other mainstream cruise line out there, whether it be Carnival, Norwegian, Virgin, Royal Caribbean, no. Absolutely not, but the food was still good. I went to the Islander dining room a couple times. The food there was good, and the overall environment was spacious and well designed. They have a menu there that changes every day. However, there are select things you can get like surf and turf over there as well. They also have a brunch option toward the end of the cruise, which I thought was really nice. I forgot the name of the sandwich that I got, but it was really, really big, but also delicious, even though I unfortunately couldn't finish it all because it was so big. I went to Cheeseburger in Paradise quite a few times and gained an extra 10 pounds. Think of Cheeseburger in Paradise as their version of Guy's Burgers, equivalent to what you would see on a Carnival cruise ship. It is free for you to indulge, and it is like a grab and go kind of place. They do have condiments and a few options for you, and honestly, the burgers there were really good. You've got the Port of Indecision buffet, which is available for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They also have a early morning between 6 and 7 a.m., a continental breakfast for those that are on the go during the ports of calls or days they visit these destinations. That way, you want to grab something before you head off to your excursion. The options there obviously were not horrible. Would I compare it to another line? Absolutely not, but they still have your pizza that is available into the late evening. So if you are partying or enjoying the nightly festivities, the pizza place is available like many other cruise lines. As a sushi lover, I couldn't stay away from Far Side Sushi. I went there a couple times, and they actually had hot sake over there too, which I was really excited about. A lot of cruise lines don't have it available, but the sushi overall was pretty good, and there wasn't a lot of downtime in between me ordering my food and having it rolled up and brought over to me. I believe I went 2 or 3 times while I was on board. I checked out the Tiki Grill and got a lobster roll and some seafood. This is equivalent to, I believe it's a seafood shack on Carnival cruise ships. Now, I can never stay away from seafood. I could eat seafood all day, every day, and never complain. The lobster roll was not as good as Carnival's, but it definitely did the job. Now, of course, I had to indulge in the JWB Prime Steakhouse. Now, this is supposed to be the premier restaurant. It is in the upper deck, and it did not disappoint. I am somebody that absolutely loves steak, and I love a good surf and turf. And I am not exaggerating when I say this, but it was probably one of the best surf and turfs that I had ever had. I do try to get a steak whenever I'm on board any cruise ship at least once, and I don't know exactly what it was. They just made it right. I am somebody that likes my steak rare. I want it mooing when it gets over to my table. I mean, like, I need it blue, and they did it right the first time. Other cruise lines, I often see that unfortunately unfortunately, they try to err on the side of caution, maybe because of health reasons. They don't want anybody to get sick or anybody to complain. But the fact that Margaritaville did it right the first time and the steak was absolutely delicious, I was happy. By the way, for those that were wondering, to indulge and eat at the steakhouse, it is $66 per person. Now, let's sail into my favorite category, the entertainment, because as most of you know, I used to be an entertainer for multiple cruise lines, Carnival, Norwegian, and then Virgin for a short time. And once you put that lens on, you can't really take it off. I see things from a different perspective, so I try to look at things objectively. But overall, I would say the entertainment is good, not great. Do keep in mind that Margaritaville is still fairly new. They only got 2 ships with another one on the way in 2027. And, well, they are the little cruise line that could. You're not going to see a show there that's going to blow you away. However, they do offer in the main theater a different show every day, roughly at 9 p.m. And some shows are good, some shows are I do believe, however, the main production shows absolutely do serve their purposes. Are you going to be bored as a normal passenger? Absolutely not. But some shows, like I said, are just going to be simply better than other ones. And I do believe they are only going to improve with time, depending on circumstances, of course, and options like their budgets and everything in between. They have different types of comedy shows. One in particular I really like was the adult 18 and up comedy show, because they actually went there. Usually if you go to an adult only comedy show on cruise ships, they are kind of hesitant to be offensive to people. On Margaritaville, at least with this particular comic that was up, he did not hold back. There were dirty adult jokes, naughty sailor words, basically everything that you'd want from an adult comic without it being too overbearing. Also on board, yes, they had bands literally everywhere. They had a pianist that was really good. There's also plenty of karaoke every night that you can indulge in if you want to sing on board, or at least make an attempt to. As far as the nightlife, they had your standard events that were going on, like your white night. They'd have it in the atrium. And of course, every night ended inside of the nightclub, which honestly I think is overall well designed. The turnout there was kind of hit or miss during this cruise, but I have been on other sailings in Margaritaville where the nightclub was actually packed. Would I call Margaritaville a party cruise? No, it is definitely hit or miss, but overall, I still had a good time over in the nightclub. One night specifically while we were on board, they really dove into the Haunted Seas event where they had a Halloween costume contest, which was really cool, and then they had a Halloween party over in the nightclub, and well, let's just say that everybody was definitely in the Halloween spirit and had a great time. As far as the ports, destinations, or islands that I would visit on my cruise, I do believe the selection was overall nice. Our first stop was Key West, and for the first time I went parasailing. It is definitely an experience I think everybody should try. It wasn't as scary as I thought it would be, and it was a very smooth, very cool experience that I can't wait to do again. We also stopped over in Belize. Now, Belize is a tender port, and I'm not really big on the tender boat. If you guys don't know what that is, basically there is no dock for the ship to essentially park at, so they have smaller ships come pick the passengers up batch by batch and take them over to land. But while I was there, I did another excursion where we did some snorkeling with some sharks and stingrays. My first time doing something like that, and it was really cool. Now, most of you know I'm not too big on excursions. Why? Because it will literally take up your entire day, and the actual fun part of the excursion usually only lasts for about an hour or so. So personally for me, it was a little too long, but I did overall enjoy the experience. We did some snorkeling, went to a couple different spots, and then we got some food after. I had some spiny lobster. It was absolutely delicious, but I am the kind of person that typically likes to kind of free roam, but every now and then I don't mind an excursion. But I did do some free roaming over in Cozumel, which was our next port of call, as well as Costa Maya. By the way, unfortunately, we did have not only pier runners from this cruise, we had a few passengers get left behind. I believe it was like 20 passengers. This is a reminder to all of you to pay attention to the all aboard times, because typically the ship will go by its time on board that is usually accustomed to or acclimated to the land at their home port, which, let's say we left out of Florida, they keep that time. So even if the time zone changes when we go to these different ports over in the Caribbean, we still keep the same time. So make sure you double check that before you get off of the ship so that you know when exactly to be back. And I would always recommend to be back roughly an hour before the all aboard time, just in case. Now, sailing into some miscellaneous pros and cons, the hot tubs do close a little early. If you go on a Royal Caribbean ship, I believe the hot tubs don't close until like 3 or 4 a.m., which is really nice to have for those late nights, maybe even after the nightclub or something that you want to do as an alternate experience as opposed to indulging in the nightlife. Their cruise director, ZJ, is gorgeous. I am absolutely in love. She is great. If you guys go on Margaritaville at Sea Islander, make sure you guys introduce yourself, because next time she may not be on the market. One thing I said last time, and I'll say it again, I do believe that Margaritaville at Sea needs an app. It's time. If they're going to expand, they need to get with the digital revolution. However, do they have the daily schedules that are brought to your room every day like the other cruise lines? Yes. They also have a QR code so you can scan the daily schedule on your phone, which is convenient to have, but absolutely definitely need an app ASAP. I did a wine tasting on board, which was cool and very casual. I also did a bridge tour, got to meet the captain and all of the other fine folk that are large and in charge on board, keeping everything in tip-top shape and making sure we're getting to where we need to go. They also have a speakeasy somewhere on board. I was able to check it out. Now, just like the bridge tour, we are not allowed to take any videos. However, I did take a nice group of photos, and it was something that you should definitely check out if you get the chance. And I wish I could tell you exactly where it is, but we'll keep that a little secret. If you go on board, just make sure you figure out how to get there, because it's a cool spot. Oh, and one last thing, I also think that they need better activities. I do believe that cruise lines like Royal Caribbean and NCL and even Virgin have better things to do during the day as opposed to what's offered with Margaritaville at Sea. Yeah, they have your standard bingo and all that, but talking to a lot of the passengers on board, because I do go out of my way to do so, I don't know how to shut up when I'm on a cruise, but that's something a lot of people were saying, is that they are enjoying the cruise overall and having a great time. But there are moments during the day, especially the sea days, where they do feel just a little bored. But you technically could say that about any cruise line, because everybody, once again, like I said at the beginning of the video, has their personal preferences. Some people want to be at the casino all day. Some people want to sun bake by the pool all day. So it just depends on what it is that you want for your specific cruise. Now, overall, would I put Margaritaville at Sea Islander in the same category as the other mainstream cruise lines? Technically, no. But the ship itself, I would say, is the equivalent at this point to potentially an older Carnival cruise ship that is a little bit more tame, a little bit more chill. And I'm not saying anything against Carnival whatsoever, but it does depend on the ship that you're sailing over Carnival Cruise Lines and the itinerary as well as the time of year. But with Margaritaville, I would assume that most of the time it's going to be a pretty chill cruise at a pretty decent price. Now, as far as disembarking the ship, it overall was not horrible. It was a little slow. I did realize as I was staying in the very long line that I had not only express embarkation, but express disembarkation. And once I got out into the terminal, they do divide everything from the people that have a passport versus the people that have a regular birth certificate. Please, guys, reminder to all of you, go get your passport. You will be in the shorter line. Anywho, I had a great time. I will definitely be back, especially if I want a nice little getaway, and it's right here in my home city in Tampa, Florida. Margaritaville, I would highly suggest, because I do believe it is kind of like your average Joe's cruise line. A bunch of normal people in there, not worried about their loyalty points and statuses and all that. Just good people. They're having a good time and going on a vacation. But this is what I have for the video, guys. Of course, on your way out, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, especially if you have been on the Margaritaville at Sea Islander. And if you haven't, if you need to book a cruise on Margaritaville at Sea or any other cruise line at that, or even a hotel, get at me. You can check out our sponsor for this channel, Lux Rally. They are the best of the best when it comes to travel agencies. We will make sure you are taken care of and have the best experience vacation of a lifetime. Link in the description box below. I appreciate you guys. I love all of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.